Thank you, and now recognize Dr. Califf for 5 minutes for his opening statement.
Good morning, Chairs Rogers, Griffith, and Guthrie, Ranking Members Pallone, Castor, and Eshoo, and members of the subcommittees. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to update the American people on our COVID-19 response. FDA appreciates your partnership in ensuring our country overcomes this pandemic and in preparing for future threats. This pandemic underscores the importance of a swift and agile response, coordinated across all levels of government and in collaboration with the private sector. While the pandemic has caused great loss across our nation through extensive communication, dexterity, and innovation, we've been able to mitigate the impact of the pandemic and prevent innumerable illnesses and deaths. Most unfortunately, the proven effectiveness of authorized and approved vaccines and therapies have been undercut by a constant flow of misinformation, causing many Americans to forego life-saving treatments, leading them to many unnecessary deaths and hospitalizations. Nevertheless, FDA employees have poured their efforts into COVID-19 response to protect the American people. I'm grateful for their tremendous work and to Congress for your support of these efforts. I want to provide a brief update on FDA's efforts related to COVID-19 medical products. First, vaccines. Currently, there are 3 authorized monovalent vaccines, 2 approved vaccines, and 2 bivalent vaccines that meet FDA's expectations for safety and effectiveness. The current vaccines reduce the risk of contracting symptomatic infection and remain highly effective at preventing serious clinical outcomes associated with SARS-CoV-2 infection, including hospitalization and death. Staying up to date on COVID-19 vaccination is the best thing Americans can do right now to protect themselves and their families from the risk of becoming seriously ill or dying from COVID-19. Second, diagnostic tests. FDA remains focused on speeding the process to get appropriately accurate and reliable tests in the hands of all Americans who want one. The agency prioritized at-home tests since the beginning of the pandemic, authorizing 30 over-the-counter at-home tests, resulting in hundreds of millions of additional tests available monthly to American consumers. Importantly, the agency has also detected numerous inaccurate tests that would have done substantial harm if allowed to have unfettered access to the market. FDA also continues to issue EUAs as appropriate for other types of devices and facilitates the availability of critical devices and supplies. Today, we've issued EUAs or provided traditional marketing authorizations to over 2,800 medical devices for COVID-19, which is 15 times more EUAs than all other previous emergencies combined. Third, we continue to expand the country's arsenal of COVID-19 therapies and have facilitated the development and availability of 3 approved drugs to treat COVID-19 and EUAs for 14 therapies. It's also important to note our critical supply chain work, which has protected consumers by preventing medical products that do not meet import requirements from entering the country. This includes continuously surveilling the medical product and food supply chains for potential shortages, disruptions, and contaminated or fraudulent products, with focus examinations on COVID-19 relief supplies. The agency remains committed to continuing the use of every tool available to us to continue to mitigate the threat of this virus and others that we have simultaneously worked to counteract, such as Mpox, RSV, and pandemic influenza. Many of these tools are thanks to the work of Congress and your understanding of the importance of preparation and addressing the needs of our supply chain before an emergency strikes. FDA employees are anything but complacent, and they'll continue to work to make sure that we're even more equipped to address any future threats. Preparing for future emergencies depends on using the many strategies that led to a successful response, as well as the establishment and refinement of authorities and flexibilities that allow the agency to identify and mitigate risks while promoting innovation outside the public health emergency. It's essential that we improve our system for evidence generation, that is, doing the right clinical trials and having access to the data that Dr. Walensky has brought up. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic also underscored the importance of both diagnostic test access and test accuracy and the critical need for a modernized regulatory framework that applies to all in vitro diagnostics. After years of collaborative work, including with leaders of this committee, We believe the ballot act would achieve this goal and is appropriately balanced. Modernized authorities would enable us to act faster, prevent problems, and allow for greater insight into FDA's regulated products for greater safety. We look forward to continuing working with you to ensure a continuation of our COVID-19 response, success, and future readiness. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.